The thing that really I thought was wrong was we're looking at the data from this test drive, and it doesn't correlate at all to the article that was written. And the result was that the car ran out of range.
It had to be towed.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was this sad shot of our car on a flatbed, as though that was the only outcome possible for such a drive. And that's just not true. And lots of people said, oh, you know, it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, you don't battle the New York Times. And it's like, the hell with that. I'd rather tell the truth and suffer the consequences, even if they're negative. I don't think it should be the end of his career. I don't even think necessarily he should be fired. But I do think he fudged an article.
So what did you hear in the middle of all of this?
Well, we did actually get a lot of cancellations as a result of the New York Times article. So it wasn't, I mean, it probably affected us to the tune of tens of millions, if not maybe on the order of 100 million. So it's not trivial. 100
million?
Probably something on that order, yeah.
So we're talking about probably 1,000 cancellations based on this?
No, sorry, in terms of 100 million, I'd say that refers more to the valuation of the company.
I see. You're not talking about orders.
No, orders
I mean,
are
you're talking about orders, but you're not talking about the amount of the orders equals 100
million.
No,
it wasn't as though there were 1,000 cancellations just due to the New York Times article.
Okay.
There were probably a few hundred.
Now, Elon, you and I have talked a lot about production targets. So you're pretty much at 400 cars per week, right?
Yeah.
For the Model S, and you are going to hit. It seems like you're going to hit 20,000 for this year. Now, some might say, okay, you're going to hit 20,000 this year, but what about next year and the year after that? Perhaps the 20,000 are just the early adopters, and that's where the demand's coming from.
In terms of Model S demand, we've seen more new reservations every successive quarter. So the demand appears to be growing if one is to extrapolate that trend. And we're also seeing that when a Model S is, when a lot of Model S's are delivered to a particular area of the country, we actually get increased reservations. So if it were just the early adopters, what you'd see is that when you deliver Model S's to a particular region of the country, that sales decline dramatically because you've satisfied the early adopters. But actually we see the opposite. We actually see increased sales the more Model S's are delivered to a particular area, which means that the word of mouth is very positive. For every customer's car that we deliver, we seem to sell an incremental 2 or 3 cars as a function of that customer. On average, and some customers it's been like 20 cars.
Now, I know in the fourth quarter, you reported a loss in the fourth quarter, and part of that had to do with the increase in expenses. I think it was up 29% to $115 million. You also, though, promised for the coming year that you're going to boost production. You're going to, as I mentioned, you're going to hit 500 cars per week. Yeah. So how are you going to get costs down and boost production? The
big challenge in the fourth quarter was going from a low production rate to that 20,000 unit a year production rate, which was really difficult because, I mean, that's basically over 400 cars a week. In the past, with the Roadster, we only made 600 cars a year.
Wow.
So we have to manufacture and deliver and service as many cars almost in a week as we did in a year. So that took that's a steep learning curve.
Yeah.
And no question we made some mistakes along the way, and it's not optimal. I don't know what more we could have done, but there's no question we weren't perfect there.
Elon, do you think you'd have the same amount of demand for your cars without the government subsidy?
Oh, the $7,500? No, I think it would be a little less demand. I mean, there'd probably be, I don't know, 10 to 20% less demand. So.
And you mentioned in your shareholder letter, because you have this loan from the Department of Energy that helps you with Tesla, you mentioned that eventually you want to be able to get rid of, essentially this government help and be a standalone business, and be a standalone commercial enterprise. When will that happen?
We have actually been paying off interest and principal on the loan on time. And one thing that was sort of, I think, not quite reported in some of the media last year was it sounded like at one point that Tesla was trying to delay the repayment of the loan or something. Actually, nothing could be further from the truth. We've always paid the loan off either on time or ahead of time. So we've got, I think, about 10 years. We want to pay it off in 5 years or less. Are you learning more, though, about how to deal with Washington? First of all, I'd say my overall impression of Washington is that it's much less corrupt than people think it is. And thank goodness for it, because if it was corrupt, we would be screwed. That's not to say that there isn't some amount of that goes on, but there actually are, I think, a preponderance of the leading House members and senators actually are quite idealistic and do care about doing the right thing.
Elon, I was looking through a recent article, it was actually a Huffington Post article, where it seemed to portray you as kind of a peculiarity in Washington. People don't really know, who is this billionaire entrepreneur who's come in and developed the electric car market? He's got this private spaceship company. One aide for Congressman Tom DeLay said you showed up to a meeting with a congressman in a tight black t-shirt.
I don't remember doing that, by the way. I don't think that's accurate. When I'm in DC, I always wear a suit and a tie. So I believe that is an inaccurate statement.
Why do you think people have that reaction to you?
I don't think that's what most people in DC think of me. And I've literally made maybe 200 trips to DC, and I've met with probably at this point half the Senate, maybe 150 plus members in the House. And they haven't just seen me once, they've seen me
several times.
Yeah, exactly.
And all the interactions have been like what?
They've been quite positive, actually. Contrary to the sentiment of that article, I believe in being quite respectful in DC, and I always wear a suit and a tie, even though I don't wear one at SpaceX.